thank you for coming, and I'm just going to hand this over to Dr. Lamia and Mr. Seibert.
All right, Kim, I'd like you to come over here for just 1 second, though, and explain what your shirt is.
So this shirt is to promote girls in sports, and so on the back, there is a saying that Rob asked everyone, the athletic director asked us to write in terms of your involvement with girls' sports. And there's going to be, it's a Saturday in May. I have to, I'm going to get the date to make sure I give everyone the information at the end of this, but we're on a Saturday early in May, we're going to all kind of come up to Byram Hills and get involved in a lot of athletics opportunities for girls to come do clinics and be involved. And
our female athletes are really like spearheading
Yes.
this, and they're like
Yes.
sort of captains of this entire operation, which is great.
Yeah.
But turn around, because Kim's shirt says, Byram Hills Women in Sports Day, I am all in.
I didn't know what to say,
Pretty
right?
good.
Well, because I was like, if I call myself like a pioneer, I sound so old.
Yeah, you are, but you are old.
Right?
Angela, what's on the back of your shirt?
The last time I wore it, I used the permanent marker and it washed off when I washed it, so it's light now. I couldn't find
Oh,
another
you
permanent
just
marker.
But what did you write? You said,
I am.
supportive.
You're Descartes.
I am supportive.
I am supportive. All right.
So it's
Kim's
a really
gonna write
good
on your
day.
back at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a really big day and,
Thank you
and
for that.
opportunities for our kids. So
Yep.
Okay.
Good support.
You play basketball, right?
I did softball, basketball.
Yes, I also played varsity sports in high school, Mia. Soccer, basketball, and softball.
For the what? Oh, you
I
did.
played
you did
varsity
already?
sports in high school. Yeah, it's kind of funny now, but anyway, back then, I was like tall, so basketball was okay.
You shrunk or?
No, but back then I was like the tallest thing there was, right? I mean, I'm a very tall woman, so. All right, so welcome to the 2025-26 budget presentation. Thanks so much for coming here. Board of Education approved the budget. This is part of the steps of the process. We had 5 budget hearings. The Board of Education approved the budget to go out to the public for a public vote. So May 20th, we are going to have the vote here at HCC. Thank you to our PTSA, who is going to do curbside baby and dog sitting so that people can pull right up to the front, leave your babies or your animals that don't bite in the car, and go ahead in and cast your vote. We appreciate people coming out. I can't ask you what way to vote. Our budget to budget increase is 3.73%. Bringing our 25-26 proposed budget to $107,327,000. I am joined today by Kelly Seibert, who is our business official. He's the Assistant Superintendent for Business. Kelly spends his entire year working on this budget, and then we come to budget meetings, and because it's something I really love, I wind up talking most of the time.
Which is fine.
There was a time when I was a superintendent in Byram Hills and I didn't have a Kelly. So I was forced to do this myself, and then I don't know, I see why you do the work you do. Before we get into this budget, we had last night our grand opening of the Learning Commons at Byram Hills High School. This is a combined Lights Learning Action project. It's a $9 million project. We are pretty much finished with phase 1, which is the Learning Commons. The kids have been in there since March 10th. They love it. They tell us it's nicer than some of the colleges that they've been visiting. It is a very unique space with a lot of large spaces, lots of light, lots of small and large room spaces, completion of a new lecture hall. It is really pretty stunning. And this spring and summer, we're going to be working on the second part of that project, which is going to be a beautiful enclosed outdoor space. So double doors from the library that can go outside, with a beautifully fenced in area with plantings and sitting areas so kids in the high school can enjoy the outside portion of the library too. That's actually my favorite part, even though I'm a big bookworm, but I really love that idea. We have already broke ground on the turf project, which is phase 2 of Lights Learning Action. And all of the fences are up and the dump trucks are arriving every single day and pulling and dropping off. So we are hoping that second turf field will be completed by September. No sleep for the weary. And then the following summer, we will have lights on both of those turf fields. And then by this following summer after that, we will have lights on all of our courts and the rest of our fields, our baseball, softball fields. We're super excited about that. We've also been working for a very long time. If you are ever in the high school parking lot or Coman Hill, you realize that Armonk is one of those places that just has the worst cell service. We have the best everything else, but really the worst cell service. It's I think if you looked on a map of the number of people who have landlines at home, it's going to be mostly centralized to this location because of the terrible cell service. We've been looking for a cell tower and locations all around the high school. Some that, locations that Verizon has told us have been too close to where homes might be in adjoining neighborhoods. We've really struggled with that, and we made a lot of no decisions with the board and Kelly and I just looking at it and saying like, this can't be the contribution to the community is that you have a big pole in your backyard. So we think we've settled on a place. At first, we thought it was going to be on one of the lights that's going on the field. That would have been perfect. But we think we may be able to even do it before the lights happen in an area right outside of the district office, which we think might be prime for that. So we're continuing to work on that. And that will certainly help with all of our cell issues. We have so many Wi-Fi boosters. I mean, we're boostered up the booster. So, but we really need to fix that problem because,
Is it gonna look like
for
the
safety
bottle brush
issues.
on the hutch?
Oh, the big.
You know which one I mean.
Yeah, everyone knows that one on the hutch. So super excited about the projects that are underway right now, and a special thanks to Kelly. There is absolutely no way, when you look at our budget that we're gonna talk about today, and you look at the fact that we have stayed below the tax cap levy limit for so many years, to the tune of like $4.5 million, how do you possibly get the money to put into a capital reserve to do projects like this? And that was really Kelly's handiwork with interest, at various points over the course of these years, Kelly has looked at our required reserve funds and has put them into such interest-bearing accounts that, at one point, 1.4 million, 1.2 million that were going into this reserve, which means we don't have to go out to the public with a bond to do this kind of work. And that is huge because right now, next year, we are paying off the last year of a bond that was taken out 30 years ago. Okay, this is like, you're paying interest, and that bond is what? We have a $2.3 million payment next year, I think, on that bond. So we're paying like 2.5, 2.3, depending on the year, $1 million back on this bond that we took out when I was 27. Like that was a long time ago. All right, so we're trying to avoid that, and the way to avoid that is to see if you can create the capital reserve that we did, and we're so grateful to the BHEF, our $9 million project. We had $8 million toward, and they pledged $1 million toward that project, and they have been really going out to the community, and the community has been absolutely unbelievable in making donations to make all of this happen, and a pretty special place because of it. So our proposed budget, we have all the programs and services that support student success, and I'm so proud to say that every single year we are looking at how we can increase the capacity of our students and increase the programs and make things so relevant for them. Whether it's a program that's happening at Wampus or at the high school, and we've been able to do that within our budget. We have a lot of state and federally mandated programs that we are able to give. Our athletic programs remain. They not only remain, they expand. We've had over the last couple of years our class of special learners at the high school who have had AAU basketball, AAU bowling. We even have, I was in the high school the other day, and I knew it was happening, but I saw the sign that said interested in fencing, so like getting started on a sort of club capacity with fencing at the high school to see if that kind of thing takes off. Girls flag football, which wasn't a thing a couple of years ago, right? So really making sure that our athletic programs and our extracurricular programs remain, and that they're programs that are helping kids toward their own futures. Our extracurricular programs, like things that we're doing in robotics or debate, right? That our kids are actually fully invested in the community called their school, right? That they, somebody years ago in Byram Hills used to say, the only thing that's a sin is seeing a kid get on a bus and go home every day, right? That they should be somehow invested in something that makes them feel part of the community. So that's what our budget does. Kelly, go.
Never know when I'm gonna jump in. There's three components of the budget: the program, capital, administrative. Program is everything essentially is related to instruction or kids on a daily basis. That's 72.8%. Capital 15.1. That's associated with our buildings, our debt service, and any payments for auditing, legal costs. That's 15.1. And finally, administrative. It's pretty much everything that's supervisory for students at 12.1%. In terms of actual expense categories, majority of school districts, their salary and benefits, their staffing is their highest expense. It's usually between 75 and 85% of their budget, depending if you have your transportation or you don't. We have our own transportation department. Contractual services is the next at 13.5. Anything we can't do in-house, we need to send out. That includes BOCES, repairs for buses, any consultant services, professional development at 13.5%. 2.2% debt service. We have one final payment next year, and we'll be done with
It's like
the debt
when my
service.
kids were in their last year of college.
So we're waiting on that. So one more payment. Supplies and equipment 2.5. Maintenance projects 1.7. We do on an annual basis. We build in the budget maintaining some of our properties as opposed to going out for a huge bond to replace a roof, to replace a boiler. We do that in the budget on a yearly basis, spread that out every year, so we don't have to have those big bonds and replace 5 boilers or replace 2 roofs at a time. We do it on an annual basis. Really helps us out in terms of borrowing, and not borrowing, I should say. And then replace some of our vehicles at 0.7%. In terms of revenue, certain areas in Westchester County, there's not a lot of state aid that we receive. The majority of our revenue comes from our local taxpayers. Similar to Byram Hills, 88% of our revenue comes from our property taxes. We only receive 4% state aid. Payment in lieu of taxes is 2%. We have 2 payment in lieu of taxes. Essentially, that's when a company makes an agreement with the county or the town to pay a set amount in taxes as opposed to an annual increase or decrease in taxes based on their value. So they make an agreement to pay a set amount for usually a 5 to 7 year period. We have 2 of those. IBM, Ingle Berman are our 2 current ones, and that's only 2% of our revenue. Fund balance at 4%, so we apply our reserves and fund balance on an annual basis to balance the budget. And then finally, other revenue, which is our county sales tax, and like Jen spoke about, our interest, which was huge in the last couple of years, has decreased a little.
We're not going to really see that for a little while.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, sure.
I love that optimism.
Optimist, yes. Okay, and then here's the actual numbers associated with that bar graph or pie graph. You can see our property tax. It's a 2.43% increase. There's a formula associated with the maximum allowable tax levy, and that's right at that level, the 2.43%. It's an increase of $2.2 million for next year. The payments, as I just spoke about, there is a decrease in those agreements on an annual basis. Next year is a pretty big decrease at 213, but it kind of levels out the next 2 years with IBM. Other revenue we've increased. Again, that's associated with just county sales tax. Interest rate, we're pretty
Yeah, people are
consistent.
spending a lot of money in Westchester
Yes,
because
please
we're getting a
continue.
lot of money in sales tax.
We get a share of that through Westchester
Yeah.
County, so it's been great the last 2 years. So please keep spending. And then state aid, the New York State budget has not been completed yet, so we're using estimates based on the governor's budget. We don't see a huge increase in state aid on an annual basis, so this is $61,000 increase, so 1.3% increase is just an increase in the basic foundation aid we receive annually. And then finally, fund balance, reserves and fund balance we're putting into next year to balance the budget. A $1.7 million increase, something we're going to be looking at on an annual basis. Not really something you want to do on a continual basis. Add more fund balance and reserves to balance your budget, but something we're going to do this year.
So our goal is also to hold tight so that the hope is you don't have to use your reserves, right? Because reserves are there for the reasons they're there, not for
Absolutely.
use
Not
in
to
an
rely.
operating budget. And this is where schools sometimes get into trouble. Like I remember the COVID monies, right?
Yep.
Like we managed to put in air conditioning, do a lot of things, and that COVID money came in for specific projects. Other school districts had no choice but to use that money for operating expenses. And then when that money ran out, they had programs that they needed to cut because the funding stream isn't there. So you should never really be using any kind of reserves to balance a budget.
Right. Absolutely.
Kelly, federal government monies.
Yes.
What does Byram Hills get?
Yeah.
Around
Wait.
600,000 we get from the federal government, because a lot of people with everything going on in the world today are like, we're gonna lose our federal funding, right? Like everybody's afraid of what's gonna happen with the federal funding. know that our aid primarily comes from our state aid at $4.6 million projected for next year, depending on when Kathy finishes her budget. But the federal government, it's about $600,000, and that's primarily for special education purposes. But it is, not like $4.6 million. So just to give you a scale of, in other districts, however, it is a majority of
$80
their.
million, like a Mount Vernon.
Yeah,
50,
I mean,
$80 million.
you're talking major impacts, so it's just good for you to know.
And we still don't know anything at this point in terms of what's going to happen.
We don't know.
going forward. So
I don't predict anything is gonna happen. But anyway, so when we look at our tax rates are done per $1,000 of assessed value. And I've said this before, this is like the 8th grade educator coming out in me. I started
yeah, I
as a
usually
middle
say
school
I
teacher.
usually give a bunch of details, and she's like, "Stop."
So let me
translate
explain this to like I would to an 8th grader. Okay, so basically we have 4 towns that feed into our tax base for our school district. North Castle comprises 81%. Newcastle has 1% of our homes or properties. Bedford 1%. Mount Pleasant 17%. In any given year, you might have, let's say, homes in Mount Pleasant that sell, and the assessed values of the homes go up because the prices of the homes were high. When that assessed value goes up, and we have a higher assessed value, that part of town actually pulls more of the weight of the tax base, okay? In other years, we've had North Castle, if you look here, like last year, if you look, North Castle, which comprises 81% of our properties, they took the heavy burden of the tax rate because they had the highest assessed value of their homes, all right? And if you take a look at, so this is where it's really weird because it's not controlled by the school, these assessed values. Assessed values come in, and since every town assesses differently, this equalization rate is applied. And once the equalization rate is applied, that determines who takes what percentage of a share of the school taxes. It's like the Wild West, if you ask me, right? Because if you take a look at this, if I'm living in Mount Pleasant, right? So I saw a 1.3, a 1.0, whoa, I went up 5.9, went up another 3, went up another 5.8, went up a 0.4, oh, now we saw a decrease, now we saw a decrease, now we're seeing a big increase again. This is like how fluid this is depending upon assessed values of homes. It actually doesn't have as much to do with what the budget of the school is. For example, was it 2021, Kelly?
Yeah.
Or 22, 21, 22?
21.
21, 22. Byram Hills had a 0% budget to budget increase. We said we are not asking for any more from the community, right? We didn't need to. We didn't do it. And still in Mount Pleasant, taxes went up 5.89%. I'm like, how could their taxes go up when we have no budget to budget increase? And it's all because in that year, a majority of the homes, because of assessed values in these places, were higher than in North Castle. North Castle saw a blip of almost no increase, right? So just to give you a sense of how that works and why that's difficult for us. So tax levy increases. And this is interesting too. Kelly and I were digging into this. We're like, because there are a lot of people with a Bedford address who actually are part of North Castle. You might say, oh, I'm Bedford, so I fall into that 1%, that's 13.83%, but there really aren't that many homes. I think we identified 9 homesteads in Bedford that are in the Byram Hills School District that are paying toward that. A lot of it is like Westmoreland Sanctuary, a lot of places that really don't pay tax.
Cemeteries,
Cemeteries, Con Edison, like there's a lot of land in there. And out of all 44 of those properties in Bedford, there are only 9 that are owned by individuals. 9 homesteads owned by individuals. It's kind of like, when you start to look at those numbers. So that's where we are with our budget to budget increase. Our tax levy increase is 2.43, but you remember our budget to budget increase is 3.73. So the question is, if you're only going out for 2.43% tax levy increase, how are you bridging the gap with a 3.73% budget increase? And that is where we would rely on reserves if we need them.
Sales tax.
Sales tax.
Pilots. Yep.
Yep. So, You know, somebody asked me today, we've been talking a lot about voting, right? Superintendents and I talk a lot about voting, and people talk about who is your no vote in the community, and, you know, will you ever have to go over the tax cap? And there may come a time we have to go over the tax cap. And I said, what I hope Byram Hills recognizes is that should we ever need to go above the tax cap in the future, which we very well could, depending upon how things look, I would hope that the community recognizes that since the tax cap's been put in place since 2012, the district has not taxed the community $4.478 million. What does this mean? In this particular year, let's start with me, right, as superintendent. Well, I mean, I was here for this, but this is when I was really working, working on this. Right? If you take a look at the tax cap levy, we stayed below the tax cap in that year by $38,000. Meaning, we said we don't need our budget to be $38,000 higher. That's what we could have taxed, $38,000 higher. In the next year, we could have taxed $920,000. But because we didn't feel we needed it in our budget, we did not ask the community for it. Now, I will tell you that that is not like any other place. Everyone says you must go to the tax cap every single year, because if you don't, you might find yourself in a position where you have to go over the tax cap at some point in the future. We don't operate that way. We operate that this money is in taxpayer hands until the district needs it, right? And if and when the district ever needs it, we will ask for it. And this is sort of our like little please trust us policy, right, of where we go. And then these years, we've stayed at the tax levy limit because we have needed to, and as we said, we are now at the point where we may be looking at reserves to fulfill that budget. And our enrollment grows. Every time I turn around, there's like 10 sections of kindergarten again. And there was a time in Byram Hills where I was the only teacher of 7th grade and part of 8th grade, and we had like 80 kids in a grade. And we've gone up to points where we had 3 teams on a grade level, because each of those teams had like 125 students. So, you know, we've had what's been our max grade level? 240? So we are actually to the point where we're hovering at our little grades at around 200 again. So we do have the capacity for these kids. Should that happen, there was an enrollment decline for a little while, and now we're back on the trajectory of enrollment increases. We also have a lot of construction going on, right? So we have Airport Campus. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with that area over on King Street. Airport Campus, I believe, as of this morning with my meeting with the town liaison, they are breaking ground. They're starting with demolition over there. That's going to be 125 homes that are going to be 2 to 3 bedroom and 50 apartments. We also have Eagle Ridge, which is next to Coman Hill, which is really, I think it's age restricted, targeted age restricted. So while that will have some tax benefits, it's not going to send kids to the school. But, you know, we're looking at places that are developing.
Eagle Ridge is IDM, huh?
Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry, Summit. Thank you. See, Mia, that's why you always have to be
Don't
here.
ask me
Don't
about
ask
numbers.
40 grand. I want to go with Mia. How much to decide my house? 10,000. Okay. Yes. So sorry. Eagle Ridge. They haven't quite figured that out yet. I think they hit a little snag, so they're holding on that. But Summit, which is next to Coman Hill, is also expected to be under construction soon. But that's, as I said, 55 and over, which is like ironically my age. We're seeing this increase, and I don't know how this is going to be impacted by additional communities. I mean, when I think about the airport campus, I don't know if you've been over to Rybrook, but it reminds me of like a Belfair, right? Like these are streets and streets of homes. There are going to be 125 homes that are in there. And that does mean a lot of kids to the schools. So that project will take a number of years, but we do anticipate more kids. And we, do want kids. It's like what we do. So my predecessor used to say every student K-11 will have the opportunities afforded our graduating seniors, and we keep this here as our low bar. We don't want them to have the same opportunities. I know that the kids who are in high school right now, or how about the kids in 4th grade? When I walk through 4th grade and I see kids who are programming drones, right, that are going through all of these like circles connected to the ceilings, that the kids who are seniors probably didn't do that project, right? So what we're hoping is that our seniors actually have more opportunities, and every kid in kindergarten can have something more than our seniors have. And I encourage you to go to our website. Dr. Tim Kaltenecker, who is our deputy superintendent, who is in charge of curriculum. I think he's like the brainchild between everything great that goes on here, and he puts together a special recognition document which really highlights everything, all of these accomplishments of our students and our faculty. It's on our website, and it's something that we're really proud of, because the whole goal behind all of this budgeting and all of these people working every single day is to give these kids a place in the world and an opportunity where they feel like they know themselves and they can develop as individuals and go out and have a great life, right? And I think that his document in particular highlights that. And once again, 2.43, tax levy increase, 3.73, budget to budget increase. And are there any questions? Well, all right.
Thank you.
What was the date, Kim?
So,
Girls in sports.
So the date is May 10th. So there are a couple things that I want to just remind everyone that's taking place. So tonight we have the pasta dinner. That's 5:30 to 7:30, and that's one of the fundraisers for our trips that are so fun and exciting.
And even though it's a fundraiser, thank you on behalf of the senior citizens at the Hurricane Hand for all of the free tickets to the dinner that I learned
It's so nice
this
to
morning
see-
you
yeah.
sent over. Yes.
Yeah, it's so nice to see
Thank
all
you
of
to
our community being
Josephine
part of it.
Egan,
Yeah.
who coordinates that.
Yes. And then May 10th, so that would be today, then we have on May 10th, from 3 to 8, it's the Women in Sports Day, and that will be at the high school, and it's gonna be also out on our Friday communication. The day includes the varsity girls sports games, followed by, again, workshops, clinics that we can all engage with our young female athletes. We have, before the 10th, the 7th, 8th, and 9th, we are going to DC with our 8th grade. Can't wait. And then the 17th, we have the, I'm like, wow, the breakfast also. And then we have Boston.
Could be busy.
29th and the 30th. Wow.
Yeah, it's great. It's like
End of
spring
the year,
and
right?
everything's here and the kids are happy, we're happy.
Yeah, I was in Wampus on Monday. Were you with me? Monday, when one of the kids was like, Dr. Lamia, we only have 43 days of school
I
left.
think it's 40 now.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
For us, it doesn't matter. It's like it ends and then it starts. So
Yeah.
it's not an end. Yeah.
So I think that's it. I thank you everyone for being here and for watching. If you do click on when we put this out, I think hopefully it'll be in next week, but we'll maybe get it out earlier. It's good information.
Yeah.